through his journey from learner to leader. So I will hand over to you, Aaron.
Hello, I'll just share my slides. So yeah, as kind of mentioned by Carolyn, I'm going to be covering kind of my journey from kind of November 2020, just post-COVID, to where I am today, and how I've kind of gone through that, and how apprenticeships specifically were kind of a big part of that for me. So a little bit of background on me. So before I started working in the NHS, I was a KFC worker, and I was quite bored doing that work, and I was a university dropout with kind of no clear academic pathway in the background. I didn't have any kind of experience. I'd just done a first year of university in psychology, so didn't really have anything that could really translate to any real career. And I kind of got frustrated with my work at KFC with not having kind of any big difference or proper career pathway. So I left that work and started looking for apprenticeship opportunities because I was aware that that was an alternative to university at the time. And what I was able to find was a Band 2 data quality analyst apprentice through the Skills Development Network, which was at Clatsbridge under Paula Pickford. And at the time, I was just kind of applying for any kind of apprenticeship that seemed like it dealt with numbers, because that was something I was already kind of interested in, with kind of playing with numbers, seeing what I can do with it. And I was applying to like finance apprenticeships at the same time. And this level 4 data apprenticeship was the first one that I was able to get my fingers on. This is kind of like how my progression timeline, if you like. So I started a level 4 apprenticeship, and during that apprenticeship, I secured a Band 3 assistant developer role. I kind of, through the skills that I was learning through in the level 4 apprenticeship, I kind of recognized really quickly that I was particularly good at some of the more technical aspects of the role, which kind of moved me away from data quality work and more towards applied BI developer stuff. And after completing the level 4 apprenticeship, I was able to then progress onto a Band 5 developer role. And shortly after that, I started a level 6 data science apprenticeship, which I'll go into in a little bit more detail as well. And during that, I got a Band 6, and then not too long ago, I got a Band 7 as well. So now I'm leading a small little team. Throughout that timeline, I kind of got my associate FedUp status during the level 4. After completing the level 4, I was able to use that as evidence for my practitioner status. And then as I was working towards the start of my level 6, I was able to get senior practitioner, with my goal right now is to use my level 6, which is still kind of at the very end of the stages around the grading, to use that as evidence towards my advanced practitioner status. So how did I do it along these? So in the level 4 apprenticeship, I was able to get a distinction, which I was very happy about. And I was also awarded through the Digital Skills Development Network Apprentice of the Year. At this point, I kind of very quickly became kind of a poster child in our team as the apprentice guy and the guy who earns too many awards probably. And then I got on to level 6, and I was awarded Learner of the Year by the Trust for my kind of ambition towards learning new skills and continuous development. My university also shortlisted me for Apprentice of the Year, which I narrowly missed out on a margin for actually getting the Apprentice of the Year award. I finished that with a distinction as well, which I was very happy about. And right now the modules are being kind of classified, and it's looking, from my perspective, like that's going to come out as a first class, but we don't know until we get that response from the exam board. So why did apprenticeships work for me? So I think the first big part was kind of having no kind of academic background. I was really worried that like I'd reach kind of an upper limit on how far I could go in life. And like nearly every job you see these days that requires you to have any kind of basic level of thinking basically requires you to have a bachelor's at least. And I was really worried about like, how am I going to be able to get that while also being able to financially sustain myself. And apprenticeships was that kind of happy medium that gave me that possibility while still kind of earning alongside it. It's also stuff that was directly applicable. So the stuff that, especially in the level 4 standard, the stuff that I was learning throughout the course is stuff that I could go away right after lecture and directly apply that into something that I was working on alongside kind of my career at the time. and this became kind of evidence enough for me to be able to say, like, I've gained the skill, I've applied it, I've learned not just from the lectures, but from actually trying to apply it and improving those technical skills. And it gave me a way to kind of evidence, not just to me, but to the people around me, that I was growing as a professional, which is how which is, I think, one of the things that reflected well on me in the interviews towards trying to progress through each of the roles that I've been through. So let's go into a little bit more about the level 4 standard that I did. So what I mostly learned in that standard was SQL. My trust at the time was already very kind of ingrained with using SQL. It had been something that we'd been using for about 5-6 years at the time, and we'd just started kind of pivoting away from being like a statutory return team to being a business intelligence team, to trying to like do more internally to improve how we use data, and Power BI was becoming a big part of that. So as I joined, Power BI was kind of starting to surface as a new thing for the team. So I got to kind of grow alongside the team and learning Power BI as part of the apprenticeship, and then taking that best practice from the apprenticeship standard and bringing it straight into my workplace and advising people on what the best way to go about things are. Things that I was able to translate to like as part of immediate impact was the IPR. So for our IPR at the time, it was a RAG-based report. So for example, if you're looking into like, so as a cancer trust, we're really interested in 62-day waits, 31-day waits for cancer patients, and nearly all the metrics in that were reflected in red, amber, green based on some target based on set by NHS England. So I was able to transform that report from a RAG-based model to a SBC-based model, and that SBC allowed us to not just kind of conclude that because we're red this month that there's something wrong with the system or the process, but it kind of gives us a better indicator of like early warning signs, and able to kind of look into processes at much higher depth than kind of what was already being looked at. So that was something that kind of already translated immediately into even like board level decisions, which I was really happy about, and reflected really well on me as well. The level 6 standard was very different. At the time, our trusts, because we were still quite early in our analytics kind of position, we didn't have a data science function, and arguably we still don't have a data science function. But I chose the level 6 data science standard because it didn't exist in my trust already, and I kind of personally thrive in an environment where I'm challenged. So I went for data science. It was kind of introduced a little bit as part of the level 4 standard, and the alternative level 6 standard at the time was a kind of like digital technology solution standard, which focused a little bit more broadly on digital skills rather than data skills. So it covered stuff like networking, digital security, infrastructure, and these things were just stuff that I personally had very little interest in. I was much more interested in how can I get the most out of the data that we've got available. So again, after taking a risk on hiring me as part of the level 4 standard, my managers were happy to take another risk and allow me to do this level 6 standard in terms of building on what could be in the future a data science function. So an example of a project that I worked on as part of that for kind of my dissertation, I worked with the Cheshire and Merseyside Cancer Alliance on a kind of population health analysis piece that was looking at all of the cancer patients in the Cheshire and Merseyside region and identifying what patterns were existing in those patients that would kind of indicate that patient is at a high risk of short-term emergency admissions compared to those who are having long-term emergency admissions, with the idea that maybe a large number of those short-term emergency admissions might be avoidable and are currently taking up quite a lot of bed days for those trusts. It was kind of a very new approach to like how I tackled it. It's something that we'd have not really had replicated or had any kind of prior examples for in the Cheshire and Merseyside region at the time, and we found something that was quite new, something that was quite unique, that we didn't have anything in kind of literature or prior analysis to support. So what we kind of found was that of the cancer population, the younger women who had early stage disease actually had notably higher short stay emergency admission rates than the rest of the population, which I thought was really interesting. And when we looked into it, there was another analysis piece that somebody in the Cheshire and Merseyside Cancer Alliance had done that identified that breast cancer patients were calling our hotline service, which is basically a service that patients who have cancer can call if they're worried about the particular things that they're experiencing. It's kind of like an arguable parallel to like NHS 111, but like specialized for cancer. And what we kind of concluded was that what that piece concluded that a lot of breast patients were engaged with it. And what my analysis and that most of those patients were being told, like, you're fine, you don't need to go to A&E, you just need to take this home intervention that you can do at home. And my analysis piece found that it wasn't breast cancer patients that were going to A&E, it was other patients. And we kind of reasoned that a potential reason for that is that the breast cancer pathways are very structured in comparison to pathways like HO or hemato-oncology. And if they're not as structured, maybe they're less aware of the acute services, and maybe we need to educate the patients better on what is available to try and prevent them to go into A&E. So it's a really cool example of like using a data science approach to kind of build on something that we didn't know was kind of a core problem. So apprenticeships as a whole, what is the reality? And I think especially from like a management perspective, it's given kind of a bad rep. So and that's mostly, in my opinion, because of the 20%. Nearly every manager I speak to who considers giving an apprenticeship to their team thinks, oh, but I'll lose them for 1 day a week. And I think that can be true, but it doesn't have to be true. So in my level 4 standard, there was a tremendous amount of overlap between the level 4 standard and what I was doing on a day-to-day basis. And the point of Off the Job was to evidence that you're working towards the knowledge, skills, and behaviors that are part of the standard. So if you have a tremendous amount of overlap between the two roles, then really you're not losing your student for a tremendous amount of time, because really all of their time should be working towards those knowledge, skills, and behaviors. If the role really closely aligns, you'll notice that your student shouldn't be really gone for that much time. It's just the lecture time, which might be 2-3 hours a week, which isn't the 20% that people are kind of told. You know what I mean? It's a lot smaller. But if there isn't a high alignment, so in my level 6 standard, because I'm a senior data engineer, there wasn't a high alignment between what was expected of the standard and what was expected of my role. And that did take quite a lot of my personal time to try and make myself feel strong as part of that apprenticeship. So it kind of does come down to how well you pick your apprenticeship, and also like the motivation of the student as well, if they're willing to put in their own time. I tell a lot of kind of people I coach now that if you want to do a level 6 standard or a level 7 standard, which unfortunately aren't really as possible anymore, that the first thing you need to recognize is that you're given roughly enough time to pass. You're definitely given enough time to pass. You're given enough time if you're motivated to get a merit, but if you want to get a distinction, if you want to do really well, that you've got to invest some of your own time, which is kind of expected if you go and do a degree as well, right? Like you've got to be able to contribute some of your own time to be able to get the most out of it. So yeah, that's a big thing that I would definitely kind of say is something that I hear a lot of people worry about, off the job time, but it's not actually that big a sink as it's advertised as. So how did I go from kind of being the somebody who focused on technical skills to kind of leading a team? A lot of it was on evidence of applied work. I kind of took all of these projects that I was working on, worked on stuff like the IPR, worked on stuff like the population health analysis piece I did, and I was kind of recognized as somebody who can make the most out of what we've got available. And also within my management line, I kind of got highlighted as somebody who's pretty good at working slightly outside of my comfort zone. And during the time, because I'd picked up quite a lot of skills through the apprenticeship standards, I'd become somewhat of a coach within team. People would ask, how is this possible, that possible? And I'd be one of the go-to people to help solve that problem. And not just kind of improve my own skills, but improve the skills of the team. So I kind of got highlighted as somebody who could take a risk on for being a manager of a small team. So as I started moving into leadership, right now I lead a small team. I'm still, arguably, I still feel like I'm still early in my career, so I'm happy that it's a small team. There was a small moment not too long ago that our trust was going through kind of like a corporate service not merger with some of the trusts in our region, and I was worried that I'd have a lot more people under me, so I was kind of glad that didn't actually come to fruition in some ways. yeah, so the team I lead right now is 3 data engineers. We also do the team's expanded a little bit since kind of I've taken it under. We do software engineering a little bit as well. So we have an RPA developer who sits in our team, as well as a Power Apps and SharePoints developer, which is something that kind of sits out of traditional BI, I would argue. But a lot of this, I'd say it's definitely been a challenge taking them on, because they definitely work in areas that I'm not as familiar with. And in retrospect, you can make an argument, well, if you did that other level 6 apprenticeship standard, then maybe you'd be a bit more aware of it. But I think we're all geniuses in hindsight. But yeah, it's definitely been a challenge, but it's been interesting as well, like helping them grow and kind of translating some of the skills that I've had through my apprenticeship standards to stuff that can be useful for them. A key part, I think, is problem solving, being able to identify what the problem is and taking it all the way down to its source, and then rooting on, like, taking that source out and fixing the problem at the very beginning. So I think that's something that aligns in both software engineering and data engineering. And it's fortunate that I can still kind of use those skills to guide my team. Where it's become a lot harder for me. So I definitely feel very strong when it comes to trying to solve something technically. I feel strong when trying to coach my team, but something I'm still kind of getting to grips with is negotiation with senior leaders. I feel like, some people just don't want their mind changed, just want something done, even if they don't really care what the correct technical direction is for that solution. And that's something that I struggle with, trying to support the growth of the team in the correct direction and creating stable infrastructure for reporting solutions and further. But sometimes that doesn't really align with what is directly asked for from some of the very senior management teams. So it's just about trying to get better at that, which again is still something that I'm learning, but it's something that I'm feeling like I'm getting better at every day. So and like I was referencing there, I think one of the biggest things that I've also learned is, just because a solution can be complex doesn't mean it has to be complex. Some of the best solutions are often found by just fully understanding what the operational problem was, and really going down to what their root problem is and translating that to a simple solution, rather than building some complex dynamic SQL flow that breaks down every other week because it's a bit too complex and a bit too rigid and doesn't kind of fit the operational problem that it's trying to solve. So I think that's something that I've really kind of improved on, especially over the recent years as kind of like leading a team. I've noticed a lot more that if we put in something that's a bit too complex, it ends up just breaking down the line, and only the person who built it can really solve it, and it becomes a big dependency problem. So it's interesting seeing how stuff evolves over time and making those improvements. So coming back to apprenticeships, what do I think makes an apprenticeship successful? I'd say for apprentices, make sure you have an active progression goal. If you feel like you've not hit the peak of your career yet, and I feel like most people shouldn't feel like that, you should have an active progression goal. So for me, that active progression goal is I want to start a master's in September. If I was to criticize apprenticeships, I'd say you're fantastic at gaining applied skills, but a lot of the theory is kind of missed on an apprentice. If you're looking for an apprentice who can fully understand logistic regression, as an example, from beginning to end, and understands all the learning mechanisms as part of that, then I'd be surprised. But a lot of them will know how to apply that logistic regression to a business problem. And I feel like having that kind of theory can help you make better decisions and in which technical ways you can apply. So I definitely say, like, having an active progression goal is something that is pretty important. It's how you can also measure that you're feeling yourself, that you're growing. And then once you've kind of finished such a progression goal, you can chat about it. You can put it in front of people and be like, look, it's not just that. It's not just, I've done something. I'm actually progressing. I'm becoming a better, stronger member of the team. And if people can see that, they're willing to, to take better risks on you, to be able to help give you opportunities to grow. I definitely think that if you're doing your day-to-day and you're comfortable in it, that maybe if you're still looking to grow, that's not the best place to be. I think if the good old saying goes, diamonds are made under pressure. You want to kind of be in a situation where you're just the right amount of uncomfortable that you're continuing to grow. If you are comfortable completely, that's fine as well. But if you're looking for long-term growth, I definitely recommend kind of putting yourself out there and trying something that is kind of slightly outside of your scope. For managers, how to make your apprentice successful. When they are in lectures, giving them the time to focus on that is good for you and good for them and good for your team. The stuff that you learn in the apprenticeship standard, it's so easy in kind of a team to be taught things that aren't technically best practice. And the apprenticeship standard kind of pulls you away from that and teaches you best practice so that apprentice can then push back on a lot of the stuff that isn't best practice. It's not just about kind of improving their technical skills, but improving the skill set of the entire team. And by having that apprentice come in and say, actually, I don't think that's right because you're not thinking about this problem, that is a huge bonus that, you know, a team without an apprenticeship standard won't be getting that big benefit of. If you're definitely worried about off the job time, then pick a standard that really matches the role that you're expecting your apprentice to complete. Especially if they're kind of new to that role. So if you have like entry-level positions, putting them on an apprenticeship standard that really aligns with where you'd want that apprentice to be in 2-3 years is a really good way to kind of give them something to work towards and kind of guarantee that that will work. And yeah, I think another thing is, you know, be willing to take it for the apprentices that come across your desk, or the junior members of staff that come across your desk who are obviously very motivated, obviously very happy to, you know, sit in that stretch, sit in that uncomfortable position. Give them the opportunity to do that. You know, let them sit outside that scope a little bit more, because that's when they start to grow. So yeah, that's kind of a little bit about what's next for me. So I mentioned I'm going to be studying a master's in September. I also have a goal of trying to get advanced FedEx practitioner by the end of the year, using my level 6 degree as evidence for that. And in terms of like what do I want out of my career, I'd love to be more involved in some research stuff. I thought the stuff that I did with the Cheshire and Merseyside Cancer Alliance was really interesting. I really enjoyed kind of working on something that you could kind of see possible tangible benefits coming out of it. I think in data we're often quite removed from the end product in a lot of ways. And I'd love to be more involved in some research where I can say, like, look, I've made an actual impact there, I've made a difference. Success for me isn't just, you know, having a high band or having a great grade in my degree. Success for me is getting to a point where I enjoy every single day that I work. And I do enjoy most of the days that I work, but I'm still getting there. I think we all are. So yeah, that's kind of my presentation. I'm happy to open the floor to some questions or any bits. Stunned silence.
I have one for you, Aaron. So you mentioned that you're now leading the team.
Mhm.
What did you find that any of the stuff from your apprenticeships have sort of helped prepare you for that aspect of managing others and leading people? Or do you feel like there's potentially stuff missing in that regard?
So I did a level 4 and level 6 standard, which are very focused on technical skills.
Mm-hmm.
The level 7 standard that was available was very focused on leadership and kind of strategy. Unfortunately, the wider strategy for the whole of the government was that level 7 apprenticeships were probably overrepresented along the number of apprentices that were on program. So the decision was to try and reduce them. And I think personally, I think it was a bit harsh on how they've gone about it. But as I understand it now, level 7 standards aren't available anymore, practically. So it's unfortunate that I've not been able to engage onto a level 7. I think it would have been something that I was definitely considering. So no, unfortunately, in answer to your question, I don't think I got many skills in terms of how to lead a team. I think I was just fortunate enough to be in an environment where I already kind of had some experience coaching people on what I thought best practice was, and that my managers thought that that was a good translation to being able to manage a team. And I think there are definitely some areas that I'm still a little bit weaker than some people might that I would personally want to be, I guess, in terms of, like, you know, negotiating with very senior stakeholders and improving those skills is something that I'm still kind of improving on. But I definitely think, you know, it is what it is. You know, we all learn that by kind of trial by fire, I think, in a lot of ways. So.
So you mentioned, oh yes, there you go. Francis, go ahead.
Oh, hello.
Hello.
Nice to meet you. Hi, Aaron.
Nice to meet
Thank you so much for spending the time going through this. I have apprentices in my team, so it's great reminder of how important it is to get them on their journey and support them really well. I just wondered, obviously you've been going through this journey for a while now and you stayed really, really motivated. What are your tips to keeping up that motivation on the long term?
I think I'm fortunate enough to be really passionate about the stuff that I'm working on. I really enjoy the skills that I'm picking up, so that makes it difficult for me to lose motivation. I think also sitting outside my comfort zone is something that I personally really enjoy. So I think that's one of the reasons that I've been able to kind of keep motivation on program. I'd say if your apprentices are losing motivation during their program, what I'd advise is asking them what would fit them better, like kind of what is their goal and how can you push towards that, because I think anybody who's willing to take an apprenticeship program will have their own goals in mind about what their future looks like. And when you can see that you're actively moving towards that goal, it gives you that confidence and that motivation to keep going. So I definitely, ask them what their goals are and see how closely you can get something in the pipeline where you can show them that that's going the way that they want to go. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
No worries.
So you've been quite lucky to be able to do a lot, your level 4 and your level 6. So what
Mhm.
sort of strategies did you use to kind of show or prove the value of letting you continue to do that? Like, how did you convince Clatterbridge to invest in you, I suppose, is my question.
Yeah. So when I completed the level 4 standard, I'm pretty sure Paula, the hiring manager, only gave me the interview because I showed only gave me the job because during my interview I showed her a spreadsheet of a game that I was working on, and the tab said "I have no life," and she must have really personally related to that. So I think like in that moment she was willing to take the risk on me for the level 4. I think after the great success of the level 4, with being kind of nominated and succeeding in getting Apprentice of the Year, having high impact projects that affected the board, and getting a great grade at the end, I think overall the trust was kind of wanting to kind of retain me, because it's not uncommon that apprentices who finish their program go on to better things sometimes. So in effort to try and retain me, I negotiated that I'd be much more interested in staying if I had direct opportunities to continue to progress, which I hope doesn't come across as a threat, because it wasn't something I was threatening them with it, but it's just something that I said, like, being able to do an apprenticeship would be great for my job satisfaction. It's something that I want to continue working towards, and my management line were obviously very keen to keep hold of me, so they enabled it for me. So yeah, it's something that's how it went about it. And I suppose it's a good strategy. I think if you can really understand what gives you job satisfaction, being able to sit down with your manager and talking about that can really give you a lot of benefits in what you do in your job. That's not something I think is even apprenticeship specific. I think that's across a wide variety of things. Just having an open communication with your manager about it.
Oh, thank you.
No worries.
Any other questions? Yes, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Dorota. I'm the lead
Hi,
data
Dorota.
analyst for Northwest Ambulance Service. So that sounds really impressive, Aaron. I loved your story, and how you progressed and how you followed your dreams, basically, and how you got there. Really, really impressive. Can I just ask, how did you manage to convince your trust to fund the masters? I presume they are funding it, or is it
So
self-funded routes that you're going down?
yeah, so I did an application not too long ago about seeing if my trust would be interested in funding for a master's, because it's not a level 7 standard. It doesn't come through to the apprenticeship levy, so it would be weighed up with the rest of like the clinical workforces, education, and when it came to the decision, they kind of concluded that it would be unfair to give me a master's funding compared to an employee, because I'd already gone through such an amount of training with the trust, and also because there is no active data science function within the team. Like, a lot of the data science stuff that I've learned has definitely been used kind of in an ad hoc basis, but we don't have like a formal data science function. So in the end, the clinical education board concluded that it wasn't an appropriate use of the limited funds that they had access to. So I'm going to go through a self-funded, self-funded using student finance route to pay for it, which I think is fine as well. I was kind of on the fence in either side, because if you get your trust to pay for it, you enter a bonding agreement, and not everybody's a big fan of the bonding agreement. It can kind of reduce flexibility and maybe induce a sense of feeling trapped. So I was kind of on the fence if it was something available anyway. In the end, it wasn't, and that was okay with me. But yeah, it's something I'm doing personally.
Incredible. Well done. Well played to you. What are you going to do masters in, if I can ask?
So the University of Leeds offers a data science and statistics masters online. It's a 2-year course, and I'm hoping to personally get out of that a lot of the theory that I potentially missed from like a standard degree route. So I feel like if you go to a university and you study data science there, that you're going to really have a good understanding of the theory, but not a very good understanding of how to apply that. And I think I've got the other side. I've got a really good understanding of how to apply it, and potentially a little bit more limited knowledge on the theory behind it. Now, personally, I've gone through great lengths to try and catch up on that theory, but I feel like getting some formal education to address it is the best next step for me.
Absolutely brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll post my email address in the chat as well, and if anybody wants to reach out and talk about apprenticeship standards or what they like, I've kind of done a lot of research in apprenticeship standards and what's available. So if people are struggling kind of deciding what is best for their team or anything like that, I'm happy to kind of speak about that and at least give my 2 pence in, because I've definitely spent a lot of time looking into the different standards and what's available. So yeah, happy for people to reach out if they want. Cool.
All right, well, if there's no other questions, then we'll give people some time back to enjoy their lunch. Thank you very much, Erin, for sharing your story, and the recording will be on the website after this. So if anybody wants to share it with someone else on their team, or go back and watch it, you're welcome to do so. And the email address has been provided if you want to follow up with any other conversations. So thank you, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your week, and thank you, Erin, for joining us today.
No worries. Happy to help.
Thank you.
Bye.